Israelis are celebrating a hostage rescue in Gaza. An IDF soldier taken captive on October 7th has been reunited with her family. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu continues to stand strong against calls for a ceasefire, vowing that Israel will never surrender to tyranny and terror.
Israeli ground forces are now advancing on Gaza City, a Hamas stronghold, while a wave of anti-Semitism is surging around the world. CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
This is the joyous reunion between Private Ori Megidish and her grandmother. Her neighbors came to celebrate, and many even took to the streets.
Private Ori Megidish is reunited with her family. She's now home in Israel, but 238 hostages are not.
The IDF chief spokesman reminded the world that many more remain in captivity.
The Israel Defense Forces has a moral obligation to do anything and everything to bring every hostage home. We are operating on the ground in Gaza and doing everything necessary to free the hostages from Hamas and free Gaza from Hamas.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the foreign media by saying Israel's war with Hamas is a battle of civilizations.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says that there is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war, a war for our common future. Today we draw a line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. It is a time for everyone to decide where they stand. Israel will stand against the forces of barbarism until victory.
Netanyahu views October 7th as a global line in the sand.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a turning point for leaders and nations. It is time for all of us to decide if we are willing to fight for a future of hope and promise, or surrender to tyranny and terror. Now rest assured, Israel will fight.
And that fight is spreading far beyond Israel and the Gaza Strip. From an anti-Semitic mob hunting Jews at a Russian airport to tens of thousands in this pro-Palestinian march in London. In the U.S., college campuses are the scene of anti-Semitic incidents. At Cooper Union in New York, a group of Jewish students forced to barricade themselves from a pro-Palestinian group. While at Cornell University, officials sent police to guard a Jewish center and kosher dining hall after posts threatening violence against Jewish students appeared on a website not affiliated with the school.
I mean, it's worse than I've ever seen it, Chris, in terms of just the temperature of the anger and how it's spilling over into very real-world hate.
That's the view from Laura Atkins, opinion editor of the Jewish publication The Forward. She tells CBN News about spending 3 weeks chronicling Israelis who went through the horrors of October 7th.
It feels good to be able to give back by helping tell people's stories and sit with people that are in sometimes the worst days of their lives. But I won't pretend that I'm not afraid with all of the anti-Semitism we're seeing, all of the just hate and vitriol and misinformation. It's a really frightening time to be Jewish, which is not something I usually say.
How has this affected American Jews?
Just astronomically. I mean, before I came here to cover the war, the first day before Israel had even done any retaliation after the October 7th terror attacks, there were massive protests in Times Square calling for intifada, which means kill Jews, calling by resistance by any means necessary.
On the battlefield, the IDF chief spokesman confirmed Israeli forces expanded their armored and infantry forces in the Gaza Strip. The goal is to collapse Hamas and bring back the hostages. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, Doron Spielman is a spokesperson for the IDF, and he joins us now live from Tel Aviv. So tell us about the rescue of this soldier. All Israel is celebrating. Can you tell us about the operation to save her?
Well, today is the 25th day of the war since Hamas invaded Israel's borders and took hundreds of people hostages, killing well over 1,400 people. And one of those hostages that was taken was Private Ori Megidish. She's a female soldier in a specific battalion. She was taken and not heard from again in the Gaza Strip. Yesterday, our forces, as part of our expanded campaign inside the Gaza Strip, which involves ground forces, aerial forces, and intelligence, sent a special forces team along with other support teams, and thankfully, thank God, managed to rescue this young woman, Ori Megidish, and bring her back home to her family. It's really, in a very dark time, a ray of light for the Israeli people. It shows hope. I think it also shows a real justification for the way that our campaign is being handled and the steps that we're taking, including increasing our campaign inside Gaza right now.
It looks like you're in for a very long and difficult fight. The Hamas has all kinds of tunnels, hundreds of miles of tunnels. How is the IDF prepared for that?
Gordon, they have been preparing for this for 16 years. Right? All that international aid money that was supposed to be helping the people of Gaza, Hamas sunk hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to creating this underground maze of hundreds of miles of tunnels. And, they've embedded themselves very deeply. And what we know is this is really what we're seeing unfold right now is really part of the script that Hamas had prepared well in advance. This kind of follows the ISIS/Hamas movie line, right? It begins with the massacre of Israelis. Then they retreat back to Gaza, go underground, and push their civilians in way. And then when a civilian is killed, unfortunately, they then turn to the international community, trying to distract the international community so that they can then continue with all their terror methods. And what we're doing in terms of our ground operations, our aerial operations, our Navy, and our engineers is we are pinpointing right now that Hamas leadership. We have eliminated just in the last 24 hours dozens of Hamas terrorists, including 5 of their commanders that are in charge of such things as part of their aerial commanders, their central commanders for the Gaza Strip. And we're weakening their structure, their infrastructure. And you have to understand, they're operating from not only inside tunnels, but inside universities, hospitals, such as we released about the Shifa Hospital. They've been embedded, and we're flushing them out, and we're eliminating them, along with seriously damaging their infrastructure. But the answer is, this is going to be a long haul. The damage that was inflicted on us was major, and therefore our answer is going to be major. It's nothing less than dismantling Hamas completely.
How are you going to wage I'll call it the ideological war that, the IDF is somehow engaged in war crimes, and as you're trying to rescue hostages, you're trying to free your own citizens that have been taken. And already we're seeing calls from the EU and the UN. What is Israel going to do on that front?
On a legal basis, the IDF operates according to the rules of war, which calls for trying to distinguish between civilians and, non-combatants and terrorists, which we do whenever possible. We do strike military targets, and we're never purposely striking a civilian, a non-military asset. Hamas, on the other hand, is breaking international laws. They follow the laws of evil, the laws of terror. They push, they push civilians directly in harm's way. And we really have to understand the facts, first of all. And the world needs to understand the facts. Hamas, every single rocket they're firing at Israel, 8,000 plus rockets, every single one of them is coming in contradiction to international law because they're being fired towards civilian centers. The use of civilians, putting them in hospitals, all this is in contradiction of international law. What we do, first of all, we have justice and right on our side. Because we are following international laws, we're moving forward with our operational capabilities, and we're doing our best to explain this to the world. And there are those who are listening. Unfortunately, we have too many times where we've seen the international press run with headlines using Hamas, of all people, as a reliable source, such as the hospital so-called bombing that eventually we proved that it was Hamas that bombed themselves. But people who want the truth need to wait for the IDF to provide the answers. It may take an extra hour, but the truth will be involved in the answers. And that's the best we can do, is to tell the truth and to act with moral and justice, which is what we're doing.
How would you encourage our viewers to help you in this time? It seems to be absolutely overwhelming on a worldwide scale. How can we help?
First of all, you have millions of viewers, and your viewers are, the very fact that we're speaking right now and that you so accurately convey this story. Every one of those people is another person that can channel this story outward, can get on social media, can speak to their people at work, can amplify the message of the truth, so that those who are falling into Hamas's trap, the deception that Hamas is putting, it's just simply a big ruse to fool the entire world, to really combat those people who are either being fooled or allowing themselves to be fooled, and push forth the truth. This really is a battle of wills. As I heard Chris's previous report before I came on of what's happening in college campuses and the intimidation. The only way to stand up intimidation is to stand proud and tell the real story. And that's what I know you're doing. And I would encourage your viewers to be very active in doing that as well.
Well said. Well, Doron Spielman, thanks for joining us, and I encourage you to be strong and courageous. These are trying times, and we appreciate your strength.
Thank you so much.
Let me remind everyone at home, when you hear reports coming out of the Gaza Ministry of Health, please realize that's a propaganda arm of Hamas. They're part of that terror network. And I'll be very blunt in my description of Hamas. It's an Islamic death cult. They want to die, they want to be martyrs, and they want to take as many Jews with them as they possibly can. No one in the world should support that. That is, it's the face of evil, and we need to stand against it.